Hi, Aries Sun and Rising. Welcome to your June 2022 Astro Update. It's Rena here, and let's see what June is going to be about. Well, the first thing that's really important is that on the 3rd, Mercury goes direct at 28 degrees of Taurus. And this is in your second house of earned income, and this is an area that has been where you have been kind of reflecting or reworking something connected with the money that you make. Also, the second house is the house of self-esteem. So this can also be an area that is being looked at in some way. Sometimes this is because of relationship issues, and I'm trying to think if there's anything specific with that. Not really what I would say. Let me think. Yeah, I don't think there's any transit that I would associate specifically with relationship issues in June, but in April, you had a full moon in the 7th house of committed partnership, and that might have been something that allowed you to look at, if you were coupled, look at how you relate to somebody else and also how they treat you. And if it wasn't something good, if the realization was that you have been tolerating something you shouldn't be tolerating, that might have put the onus or kind of the burden of responsibility back on you to set boundaries, to kind of love yourself more, practice self-love rituals, whatever you want to call it, and learn how to not accept things that you shouldn't accept. But also with the second house, we are talking about money, and Mercury went retrograde in the 3rd house. So if you have, I think that this is especially important for money mindsets because the 3rd house relates to your mind, how your mentality, how you view things, like your outlook on life. Aries people tend to be quite optimistic in general, and with money, generous, and both to other people, but also with yourselves, like free spending, not, kind of petty. But that's the overall Aries pure kind of a thing. Not many people are going to have that pure Aries influence. So in other words, your Venus could be in, let me see, could your Venus can't be in Cancer, but it can be in Taurus, and sometimes Taurus, well, I don't know, I don't think Taurus would be very frugal in terms of Venus and Taurus. But even like your moon sign can be anything, and you might have the moon in Capricorn. You might have the moon in a sign like Cancer that's very security minded, and you think before you spend money in a certain way. And therefore, you have to kind of navigate that because it can show up as being fear-based for those people. And if you grew up with not a lot of money, then you may not be the typical Aries free spender as well. So Mercury goes direct on the 3rd. It's just going to affect momentum in the next couple of weeks until 17th, 18th, and then it's really going to feel a lot more free because we've had Mercury is a personal planet, and the retrogrades of personal planets really do affect us more than the outer planets, which brings me to the very next day on the 4th. Saturn goes retrograde, and this is at 25 degrees of Aquarius, and that's a friendly angle to Aries, the 11th house, and this is an interesting area because this is working on goals that have, I would say, besides your career goals, which would be more 10th house matters, and other things that you want to accomplish. And so Saturn in this house has really made Aries people serious about their social life. And Aries, being a fire sign, tends to be a sign that is very people oriented, very extroverted. And of course, that's going to be modified if you have other things going on. I'm a Sag, which is fire, and I'm very introverted, so that is like totally not me. And I'm sure that there are some Aries people out there who can relate. But if you are the typical Aries, you are going to be very outgoing, and sometimes this can mean not being too discriminating. So just hanging with a whole bunch of different types of people, but not necessarily people who are on the same page with you in terms of your serious goals in life. And there may be other things that have been going on with you. Aries, you have Chiron in your sign, so healing that you need to do. Maybe if you have gotten sober, for instance, then you have to kind of really shift the people that you hang around with. And it's kind of like, Saturn can be that very stern parental figure that is like, no, that person isn't good for you. And you might have a great time with that person, but it's almost like too good a time. And that's only that night. And then the next day, you feel like you've got a hangover and you have this sense of, what am I doing with my life? Saturn wants you to grow up. So it means being very serious about the company that you keep. And also being very serious about your long-range goals. Aries people tend to live in the moment because Aries is a very impatient sign. And so the idea of goals and the long term and what Saturn represents is like really not your cup of tea. And yet things, that I had a cheesy poster in the 70s that said all good things come to those who wait. But that's not really cheesy. And it wasn't, somebody who said it in the 70s. I think it was like ancient quote. So in any case, this is something that with the Saturn retrograding here, you may kind of ease up on things and trying to see if this is really the direction that you want to go in. And I'm talking about specifically some of those goals that you have. On the 13th, Mercury goes back into Gemini, so it really is feeling like momentum. And in a few days, it will be back to that degree where it retrograded. And Mercury rules the third house, so it's Chatty Cathyville. On the 14th, and especially like if you had any kind of a falling out with a sibling, neighbor, that could be resolved because Mercury retrograde, it's not so much fighting with somebody as misunderstanding them. And you might not have even been there when the misunderstanding occurred. Somebody else may have been the person spreading lies or misinformation. And it created a rift that you didn't even realize existed. And now you can get that resolved. On the 14th, there's a full moon at 23 degrees of Sag, and that is for you the 9th house. And it is, for some people, if you have been planning a trip, this may be all systems are go, where you finally got the okay that you can do this. You finally have enough money to do it. There's some kind of a culmination with this. It could be graduating. Maybe you're graduating from college. Maybe you're just finishing your term. But it's a later degree. 23 degrees, I guess, isn't the final degree. So maybe it wouldn't be graduation for everybody. But definitely it might be a turning point for certain people. If, for instance, you are graduating from college, it can be that foray into adulthood and the quote-unquote real world. Don't think that you're really entering the real world. This is bizarro world. That's what I call it. What else could be happening with this? Oh, this could be like a spiritual download. This is the house of God, and you may have some kind of aha moment that connects with your personal belief in a higher being. On the 21st, the sun goes into Cancer. That's the domestic side of life. And of course, this happens every year, not exactly on the same date, but in the same vicinity. And this is cardinal energy. You're very familiar with it being a cardinal sign. So that's where that go, 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 a lot of things start to happen. Because I don't know about you, but I have felt a bit of lull in the action. And this can be when things really start to rock and roll for us. And it's just a time when you may feel the urge to nest, to kind of spend more time at home for whatever reason. Well, the reason is the sun is going into Cancer, but you may have your own reasons. On the 22nd, Venus goes into Gemini, into that third house, and that's now for sure we have Mercury going forward, and it's also in Gemini. Venus is here. So this could be like online dating, or perhaps any kind of social media that involves, somebody that you hit it off with romantically. Maybe you're on the same message board with someone. This could be money that you're earning online as it pertains to social media or related kinds of projects, communication. Maybe you're teaching something to someone and making money from it. On the 28th, there's a new moon at 7 degrees of Cancer. That's that fourth house of home and family. So perhaps some of you, the full moon in the 9th house, if you were like abroad, if you were ending a trip, that could be coming back and then coming home and buying a new home. I don't know. That seems kind of hectic. But something new with home matters. The same day, Neptune retrogrades at 25 degrees of Pisces in the 12th house, the house that it rules. So a Neptune retrograde can be a reality check. In the 12th house, this can really be just in general, any kind of addictions that exist that you have kind of glossed over and said, oh, that's just like, I'm just partying on the weekends, but it's like a 3-day bender, and you see the negative impact it's making on your life for some reason. This can also be like a thing I could say, like if somebody thinks they're dealing with a twin flame situation and really they are, trying to make excuses for a toxic relationship and trying to spiritualize it so that they can justify staying there. Because sometimes people stay in bad relationships and they use spirituality, they use astrology to do it. And you can't do that. I mean, well, you can, it's a free country. You can do whatever you want. But if you really want something, you want a healthy relationship, when you see signs that something isn't healthy, take that as a red flag. Don't try to bargain with the universe and look for synastry, look for things that you two have in common, especially if it's 12th house related. Oh, we're soulmates. We both, his North Node is in my 12th house. So, yeah, he, gets drunk every night and he insults me all the time, but, his North Node is in my 12th house. So I'm going to stay with him. That kind of thing, I think is really horrifying. And believe me, it does happen. Different things like that. And you don't want to do that to yourself. So the other thing that this can bring about is, this is an interesting thing too, because of that full moon in the ninth house. The ninth and the 12th houses have something in common. Jupiter is the ancient ruler of Pisces, and so it has an affinity with the 12th house. And so if you had a full moon in the ninth house, there may have been something about even like organized religion that you're letting go of, or you're realizing what it has done. And the Neptune retrograde can, or it can be anything, even if it's like a new age kind of thing in the ninth house. Usually I think that the ninth house is going to be more of the organized religion. And the Neptune retrograde can be something that is disillusioning, because you were hoping that something was, maybe going to save you, some kind of a spiritual belief. And it can be the best thing that ever happened to you, because I think more and more people are realizing that they cannot look to something to be their savior. Even if they believe in Jesus Christ, and they, everybody always says Jesus Christ is a savior. Even if you think of Jesus as your savior, it can be in a different context rather than saving you from yourself. Because the 12th house is a house of self-undoing. And this, I think, ultimately, what this Neptune retrograde can do is show people where they are lying to themselves about an addiction, about some kind of behavior that they do that really hurts them, that keeps them from living their best life. Okay, Aries, that's what I have for you. I hope that this resonated. If you would like a personal reading, the link is below. Take care.